I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to Reading Aristotle's Politics. Today we're finishing up Book 3. It's a very short chapter, so this is not going to be a long time. Chapter 18 of Book 3 is kind of the conclusion of the kingship argument and discussion of here. But it also does a problem, and how it ends, this leaves us in kind of a conundrum of where should we look next. Should we turn, the tradition of the book is usually Book 4, 5, and 6. 4, 5, and 6 are normally the practical books. And then 7 and 8 are the discussion of the regime that we would pray for. But as we'll see at the end of this chapter, there is a confusion. What is the topic? It sounds like he's discussing the regime that we pray for. And some people argue that it's this lacuna or this problem, says we should, in fact, this is what Werner and the 19th century German philologists argued, that we should the thing that follows Book 3 should be the discussion of the city we should pray for. That is Book 7, traditionally Book 7 and 8. In fact, if you know Peter Simpson's translation by University of North Carolina back in the 90s, and it's a very good translation, I like it. But he orders the book like how the German scholars, Werner and gang, the philologists argue should. So he doesn't follow the traditional orderings of the traditional 4, 5, and 6 about the practical, so-called practical politics, and then 7 and 8 about the best city. He focuses the right after book. He numbers Book 4. That is the book. What would be Book 7 traditionally, and Book 6 is traditionally Book 8. Now, in doing this, he echoes what Schumacher does, and some translations do with. This is what Schuschmiel and Hicks does in their volume on the politics, which is Book 1, 2, and 3, and then those together. I have that edition. Some places up here, it's that Schuschmiel and Hicks. You can get it from the Forbidden Books and places like that. They can get reprints of those. Schuschmiel's and Hicks' commentary of the politics does this kind of thing. It ends it with, doesn't give us the practical books. It ignores the second. It doesn't do a second volume with the practical books. It ends 5. It brings 5 and 6 and 4 and 5, but 4 is being books 7 and Book 8, and 5 being Book 8. So therefore, this is that weird thing. This is why there is this debate here about what follows Book 3. Does 4, 5, and 6, this discussion of the so-called defective regimes, or this practical these other regimes, in other words, does the discussion of the regimes here, it needs clarification, or should we go right into discussion of what is the best regime? Because we had the discussion of kingship leads to a discussion of the best, or the aristocratic regime, right? The rule of the regime that we would play for. So let's look at this chapter. We'll wind up Book 3 on this question. Since we assert that there are 3 correct regimes, so he reasserts the discussion all the way back in chapter 7. There's 3 correct regimes. That of these, that one is necessary best, which is managed by the best person, and that this is the sort of regime in which there happens to be one certain person, or a whole family, or a multitude that is preeminent in virtue with respect to all rest of persons capable of being ruled and of ruling with a view to what is most choice-worthy way of life. And that's why this is a long sentence. This is why this, and since it is our earlier discourses, okay, now in other words, so therefore, regardless, this idea that there is a rule of the best person of this sort, whether it happens to be of a certain person, a whole family, or a multitude of preeminent virtue, respect to all the rest, everyone else, right? Of persons capable of being ruled in turn with the view of the most choice-worthy way of life. And since in our earlier discourse it was shown that the virtue of man and citizen is necessary the same in the best city, and that's again, this is book this is Book 4, Book Politics 3, Book 4, chapters 4 and 5, right? That's discussion of the good man and the good citizen that was earlier. In other words, this idea of this, it is evident that it is the same manner and through the same thing that a man becomes serious, spudaios, and that one might constitute a city under an aristocracy or a kingship. That's a long, convoluted sentence. So let's break this into parts. Let's think about this for a second. How are we going to break this into parts? So the first thing is that there's three correct regimes. But what the three correct regimes aren't the regimes that he's doing. Rather, the three correct regimes are this kingly multitude, the kingly regime, an aristocratic regime, and a political regime, a political multitude. The regime of a kingly multitude. We had three things here. We have three things now. And each of these are finely ruled. These are going to be finely ruled. That means they're ruled for the common advantage and not for defect, not unjust. So therefore, it's not that we don't go back to book 7. We don't go back to chapter 7 of book 3, this original typology. We don't go to that typology. Rather, we go to a new argument about three best regimes. The kingly rule, the one of the many aristocratic rule, and one is political rule. Okay. Now we can say that's the rule of a politeia, right? Political rule in that sense. Well, this is polity. No, it's a rule. It's political rule. Now, but the question is, what is the regime into it? That's not. This is the three regimes that are correct in that sense. But even then, there's going to be one. He says what? Of these, the one that one is necessary best, which is menaced by the best persons. Well, so it's managed by the best persons. So therefore, it is the best. What is best is managed by the best. This is okay tautology here, right? So we can say that's the best is ruled by the best, okay, and that this is a sort of regime in which there happens to be one certain person or a whole family or a multitude. So therefore, it doesn't solve the problem. This is ruled by the person who's best, right? One necessary best, which is managed by the best, and that this best can be one, few, many. Okay, right. But the many is not many; it's the multitude, political multitude. Okay, and that this people are capable of being ruled and ruling with a view, so they're citizens. They're going to be ruled. So therefore, that's not kingship. Kingship has to be excluded because there's no. In other words, he's not the preeminent. It's not someone who we're going to submit to and then not be. In other words, if someone is preeminent virtue, he's not going to be ruled by us. So therefore, this what is being talked about here is not a regime of one where there's preeminent virtue. Because why? Because he's going to be ruled in turn. So that of the three types, therefore, this way, but the kingly virtue, this is not the absolute king. This is a different king. This is a rule of someone. There's going to be a virtue, a preeminence of virtue here, but it's a virtue in a family, the virtue of a group of people based on their skills or technicians, and the other one is because the population is relatively similar, right? Three criteria that back here. So therefore, the question here is that the virtue of the good man and the virtue of the symbol. As we turn back to he reasserts the question of the good man and the good citizen being one. Remember, what is a good citizen? The good citizen and the good man is tied to the good being prudent and good. So therefore, they're capable of ruling. Again, there's a political rule. So it can't be the absolute rule of the one best. The simply superative. In other words, it's still there might be we might create a family. Therefore, it's maybe the family might have this kingship will be like the Spartan king. There is kingship, but the kingship has to be that we have to recognize the family that it's of some kind of virtue. of preeminence of virtue of political leadership. Of political leadership. Remember that previous chapter. Now, the next thing is that of the aristocratic, and then that's the political rule, right? So therefore, and it is evident in the same manner that, and through the same things that a man, right, becomes serious, and that one might constitute a city under an aristocracy. So we have a choice to be an aristocracy or kingship. Not, in other words, we're not going to have to discuss a political rule. The political, we are going to have an aristocracy or a kingship. But we discussed that kingship cannot be the absolute kingship upon Basileia because we've said that this person is going to be ruled in turn. So it's a different kind of kingship. It's not a regime. It's a office more than this kingship here that is now being discussed. I think is more office than king. A king as a regime type. So the education and the habits that make a man excellent or serious are essentially the same as those that make him a political or kingly ruler. Whoa. In other words, political or kingly ruler. In other words, the education that makes a man serious. So this spoudios, the education that makes one spoudios, also makes him capable of being a political ruler, politicos, or basileus, a kingly ruler, someone who was king. So therefore, the education of this is of a serious man. So there, I think this points to a discussion not of book 7 necessarily, book 8, but maybe to the ethics, to discussion of the spoudios. What is the good man? What is the spoudios? Again, because the spoudios is only the assumption is the spoudios equals the good man in in chapter 4, in book 3, chapter 4 and 5, right? The spoudios, the serious man, and the good man is the same thing. The agathos, and the spoudios are kind of switched around there, right? And so too this good citizen and the good man, the serious citizen, right? This flipping around of this, and there's the assumption is that spoudios and agathos are the same thing, but are they? Is it really the same thing, or is there a difference? We don't know. This is not really highlighted. This is something that's maybe that we have to turn to the ethics to. So it could be that this is a pointing not only to book 3, the question of book, the ending here may not only point to this, but also might point back to the ethics. Okay, that's why this is weird. Book 3 here is a weird book. The end of book 3 is a very odd thing how he ends it. Now then he goes, these things having been determined, right? Wait a minute, have they been? We must now attempt to speak about the best regime, in what manner it accords with nature and arises has been established. It is necessary then for for one who is going to undertake it to investigate it and investigation appropriate to it, right? And this is 91. This sentence is incomplete in the manuscript. It's repeated verbatim at the beginning of book 7. So that's why we think this is why book 7 should come here, right? Why book 7 should follow this. So therefore, this is again, right? This is the question of this begins the discussion why book 7 which may be read here. Was this really part of here? Was this a manuscript error? Was this? We don't know. We leave it here as though this is a continuation of this. Some argue there's two ethics. There's actually more than two ethics. There's the Nicomachean ethics, ethics. They're saying that was there two politics? Was there two politics? And remember, the Nicomachean ethics is weird because the Eudemian ethics and Nicomachean ethics, both share the books, so-called common books, that of the book 5, the Nicomachean ethics, book 5, 6, and 7, is shared between both ethics, but there's differences. As Peter Simpson, in a series of articles, have highlighted the difference between Eudemian ethics. Even the common books, the books that look to be the same book put through the thing, There's enough differences in there's differences in the Eudemonian versus Nicomachean ethics. Small differences, small things, but there's something similar. The question is, maybe book 1, 2, and 3 are just two books of the politics. There's the politics of theory, which is 1, 2, 3, then 7 and 8, and then there's the politics of practice, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that the common books is not in the ethics. The common books are kind of in the middle between the discussion of virtue, then these common books, and then friendship. Right, that's Nicomachean ethics, and they have the same thing. They're sandwiched. The practical books are sandwiched between the discussion of virtue and the discussion of friendship. Right, and the ethics. Well, this is a very interesting thing that we should think about in that sense. But we're going to end here. This is a quick one. If you have any questions or concerns or things, I mean, this previous sentence here, this whole chapter, the actually paragraph here, this 118, this is J.J. Mulhern's Phronesis piece that deals with this thing about the question of the best regime. This best regime here is talking about. He has a great article about Mulhern has about this question that forces us to rethink the discussion in Book 5. So Mulhern's piece is very interesting. This whole thing, how this book ends about the just regime, and whether is there one just regime or multiple just. See, that's the problem here. Is how you understand this. Is there just one regime that is just, or is there different regimes that are just depending on the population? See, this is the problem of the text. The Greek text is more nuanced and much more highlighted here than the translations always try to make it out to be. So Mulhern's review of the 1970s, I think it was a classic piece in Phronesis, raises the question here of this ending here about justice, right? The best way of life and this choice worthy of justice, this correct way of life that deals with this, that this is more questionable whether it is only one way of life, one regime. Yes, there's three correct regimes, but they end up being really one. But what is the West regime? It might vary on the specific context of the people in the question. So what is best may actually be a much more specific context regarding what the population and the situation we're in. So that's why this is how we end Book 3 leaves us a lot of questions that really kind of frustrate. This is why someone like the late wife of Harvey Mansfield, Delba Winthrop, and her PhD dissertation in Chicago, which looked at Book 3. And only recently, about 5 or 6 years ago, Harvey Mansfield had it published by University of Chicago. This is all about Book 3, and it's a wonderful book. I wish I didn't read the dissertation until like in the early thousands when Harvey gave me the copy of the dissertation. I begged him to get a book, publish her book, because her dissertation was a groundbreaking thing, and it would have made my life easier in my dissertation itself in the book I wrote on Book 3. So I think this is I'm not as my Book 3, my commentary, Best Regime, Aristotle's Best Regime, reveals on Book 3 is not as hers is revolutionary in that sense, and really, I think we're going on the same path, but I'm a little bit less. I was a little less interested in the metaphysics and more interested in the politics than she was. But at the same time, I think and her reading of this more philosophical in a kind of better Dedian way. So I just mentioned that as kind of an alternative to what we've been doing here. Maybe if you want to go look at people who wants to go spend some time, read Delba Winthrop's book on what is it called? Aristotle Democracy. I forget the name of the title. Delba Winthrop. She has also Harvey published her commentary on Book 1, which is a very thing again published at Perspectives of Political Science about 15 years ago. 10 or 15 years ago, when Peter Lawler was still alive. Peter Lawler was a good friend of mine who died about nearly a decade ago. He was the editor at Perspectives, and he was a student of Delba. And I think Delbo's is a great Aristotelian scholar in that sense, and that's why I would recommend reading her book on the book three. Well, that's it. Um, Shut up, Bates. If you have any comments or criticisms, comments or questions, please put them below, and if I see them, I'll respond. If you've liked it, like it. Share with a friend if you liked it. Get someone to. If you not like didn't like it, say why a little bit. Maybe I can learn from this. Um, Another thing is that if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. If you want to follow me on social, you can get other people to subscribe on the. I like to during the new year. I like to grow the channel a little bit. I would like to get to the magic number so I can get monetization, but that's not going to happen. I'm not going to be that popular, or whatever. Or there may be 100 years from now, someone, oh, these great videos like by Bates, talking about the politics. Um, I spent my whole life studying the politics, so therefore this is like when I teach my graduate seminars. This when I rarely get to teach politics, um, which I haven't done that often because I'm in an American Studies department, so it doesn't do Aristotle's not relevant to American Studies. Um, okay, if you want to help, this is going to cost now the shill. You can follow me on social media below. Subscribe to grow this channel like I can stand. Uh, uh, you can follow my things in there this way. If you want to help the channel grow, because why? Because this is costing money, and in the sense that the videos I have are bigger, and I'm going to do more of them. But the problem now is YouTube is making us pay. I think we get too big, and that unless we make money, monetization, that it doesn't make sense, and therefore I'm stupid doing this. You're not good enough, and that so Patreon, baby, Patreon. Okay, but I understand. I'm not giving. I'm not treating this as proprietary stuff. I'm giving it to you. This is a kind of gift. This is my kind of gift in that sense, but it costs money, and I hope maybe you want to help me do this. You can contribute now. Of course, people say, "Well, you're not doing anything for me in Patreon. You're not doing any special gifts or things like that." Yeah, okay, I'm bad at that. I'm not good at this. I'm not. Michael Milliman does a better job marketing himself to this. But then again, I have a job. I have a university job, and Michael has kind of given up. He's trying to become his own university, so he needs to. This is how he feeds himself. I don't feed myself from you guys. It would be useful to have some money to pay to maintain this, so it doesn't eat on my money that I make. But it'd be good. Okay. Another way you can help me is buy my book. Buy Lulu. Buy Lulu. If you buy Lulu, it's cheap. I mean, it's more expensive. You buy the Amazon in the sense that you have to pay the shipping. But if you buy it from Amazon or Barnes and Noble or other things, they get the profit. I may see some money from it, but I'm not gonna. But if you buy from Lulu, I get a bigger share. So please go think about getting it from Lulu. This is why this book is useful. It is basically like the Cliff's Notes on politics. It is a notebook on Aristotle's politics, which is not. It's not a commentary. It's not interpretation. It's basically a study guide. It's kind of a book to help you as you study politics to grasp aspects of it. It offers charts and sections of book by book in this to kind of clarify and help better on the grasp of it. Well, that's enough of the shill. I do it every a couple minutes of the shill. This has been a short chapter. I hope you don't think I've abused you by doing this. We turn next time to book 4 of the politics. We start. I'm going to turn to 4. I'm making a choice. I'm going to be traditional. I'm going to follow the traditional ordering. Some people may say, "Well, why don't you do books? Why don't you follow that and do 7 and 8?" No, I'm going to follow the tradition. I want to go do the thing. Maybe someone who wants to follow the other way, they can do it. After I get all these done, maybe someone can have the alternative way. They can go change the video if they want to. But right now, I'm going to go look at. We'll start next time. We'll do book 4, first chapter, book 4. On that, take care. Have a good day. See you next time. Bye bye.